You can build AI agents with a single markdown file and a single Python script, without frameworks, without infrastructure, without no-code platforms, and without thousands of lines of agent boilerplate. I built an AI agent to manage my YouTube workflow, and it researches video ideas, downloads transcripts, writes titles, and even uploads my videos for me. The whole thing is just a folder that you can clone and run in minutes. This is the micro-agent architecture, and by the end of the video, you'll have everything you need to build your own AI agents using this exact approach. A micro-agent is fundamentally just a folder with two main things. So the agents.md file is a set of instructions and tool definitions. So all this is, it's like a system prompt for the agent. So most of the modern AI coding tools read a file called agents.md. And if you're not sure what that is, there's a specification, there's even a website for this. Most of the modern coding tools already read this file when they first start up. Claude doesn't read this by default, so you need to either rename this to claude.md or you need to reference the file in your claude.md file. But anyway, this is just a simple markdown file with a set of instructions that the AI coding agent will read every time it starts up. Okay, so we have the instructions, and then we also need the tools as well. So in order for any agent to be useful, it needs a set of tools to do its work. So the tools folder will just contain any kind of script that the agent can execute. The important thing to say here is it doesn't matter what this script is. It's anything that you can execute in your terminal. So this could be a Python script, but it could also be a Bash script. It could be a Docker container. Pretty much anything that you can run inside your terminal, you can give to the agent, and then it can use that tool to do its work. There are two other folders which I think are worth mentioning. The first one is the context folder. So as well as having tools to do its work, an agent also needs some context, or maybe it needs some additional information. Maybe it needs to know about your business. Maybe it needs to know your standard operating procedures or some other context. So we're not doing anything complicated here. We're just storing static files. And then within the agent.md file, we can tell the agent to go and read those files. So then it understands more about us and our business. What I like about this approach is it's just really simple. Everything here is just a file on your file system. Super simple. The workspace folder is just where the agent is going to store the things that it saves during the sessions. So for example, in the case of the YouTube agent, you could imagine the agent downloading a YouTube video for you and saving it to your local file. That would be one use case for the workspace folder. All right, so the first thing we're going to need to do in order to use our YouTube agent is call the YouTube API. And so the way we do that is to use an existing API provided by Google that allows us to connect directly to YouTube, fetch the data we want, and then this will allow us to build the agent. So the first thing you're going to need, and pretty much the only thing you're going to need for the context of this video, you're going to need to get an API key from YouTube. So I'm going to show you quickly how to do that. So you want to go to cloud.google.com, and then you want to click on the console, and then you want to create a project. I already have a project here, but let's create another project just to demonstrate the concept. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call this YouTube video demo, and I'm going to create that project. It'll take a minute or two for that project to be created. All right, so now that we have the project, we're going to switch over to the project. And then if you come up here to the search bar, you can just type YouTube API, should do it. And then you'll see the YouTube Data API v3. We're going to click on that. And then we're going to enable this API for this project. We're going to click on Enable. Once you've enabled the API, the next thing we need to do is go and get an API key. Okay, so now that we have the YouTube API enabled, the next thing we need to do is go and get a credential. If you actually want to upload your videos to YouTube, you're going to need OAuth credentials, which is slightly more involved, but not much more involved. So to keep it simple, we're just going to use an API key for today. So we're going to click on Credentials. And then we're going to click on Create Credentials, and then we're going to create an API key. So what you want to do is once you've created your API key, you want to copy the API key and then save it somewhere safe. So the next thing you're going to want to do is export this environment variable. So we're going to type export YouTube _API _key equals XXX. Whatever the value of your API key is, you want to set that here. The next thing we're going to want to do is spin up a coding agent. So the important thing to know here is that you can use any of the open source coding agents to build this agent. So what I'm going to show you today is Open Code and Claude Code, but just be aware that this pattern works with any of the open source AI agents. Okay, so I'm using Open Code with the GLM 4.7 free model. This is not a very fast model, but let's take a look. So what I'm going to say is, can you research videos about AI agents? Find the best performing titles on YouTube. So the reason I want to do this is I want to learn more about what titles work well on the topic of AI agents. So it's going to use the Python script that I built, and I'm going to show you in a second, to go and search on YouTube and then find the best performing videos. All right, so what this agent is now doing, it's figured out that it needs to make a plan, it needs to research videos about AI agents. But the really important thing to understand here is that this agent doesn't have any way to connect to YouTube. So by default, this AI agent has no knowledge of YouTube or how to get the data. But what I've done is I've given it an agents.md file, which essentially describes how to get the data. And then I've given it a tool, which is just a simple Python script that allows it to get the data. So you can see here that it's figured out in order to get the data, to search YouTube and get the AI agent videos, it needs to call the tool that I've given it. So this is a Python script. It only took me 5 minutes to write. And even if you don't know how to write code, you can very quickly build scripts like this for your own business and for your own use cases. All right, so the agent has now completed its work, and you can see here that we have a comprehensive breakdown of the best performing AI agent video titles. So the agent is helping us ideate what makes a great video title. It's teaching us about how to be successful on YouTube, essentially. And so you can see here, these are the most popular videos. So introducing Notion 3.0 agents with 15 million views. And you can see here, there's a bunch of other high-performing AI agent titles as well. And what it's done is it's analyzed the titles and it's identified like a bunch of common patterns which make YouTube titles great, essentially. So you can see here, authority figures, specific numbers, urgency, all the things you would expect to make a YouTube title successful. All right, so now we're going to show the exact same thing, but we're going to use Claude Code, which is a different open source coding agent. And the important thing to understand here is that the AI agent itself, the agent harness, is generic. So something like Claude Code and Open Code, they all basically do the same thing. They've implemented an agent loop, but what's unique to us is the tool that we've given it, the YouTube tool, and then also the context and the workflow information that we've put into the agents.md file, which I'll show you in a second. So let's run a different query now with Claude Code. We're going to say, find the best performing YouTube titles and tell me how to write great titles. So I've given it 3 YouTube channels that I want to learn more about. You can see here that Claude is now doing the same thing. Because I've given it the context on how to use the YouTube tool, it's now executing 3 tool calls in parallel. So we're going to approve those tool calls. So you can see here, it's studied the 3 YouTube channels. It's identified the best performing titles. This one from MKBHD, this is not normal. This was an outlier. So it was 2 times better than the average video for this channel. And it had 13.6 million views. You can also see here are some other titles that did well. So what the agent has now done is analyzed those titles, and it's figured out these particular patterns, curiosity gaps, specific numbers, a transformational promise. Now you can use that information and you can compile that into some kind of standard operating procedure that you can use to write your own YouTube titles. So we're using real data, real evidence that the agent has identified, and we're using that to improve our own content. All right, so let's take a quick look at the YouTube agents.md file. So what I've done here to make this work with Claude Code, I've just referenced the agents.md file. This is a useful trick if you're working with Claude Code, but you also work with other coding agents. You can just link to the agents.md file. Claude will just read that when it starts up, and then it will go and read this file as well. Always said, you are a YouTube research and publishing agent. You help analyze channels, find high-performing content, write scripts and titles, and upload videos. So we're defining, here's what you do as an agent, and then we're just telling it you have these tools available to you in order to do your work. So we have a search videos tool. We've given it a bit of information about how to use the tool. We don't need to tell it very much. These agents are just really good at executing scripts in general. They're very, very intelligent. They're trained on doing this. They are just really excellent at executing scripts. And so you don't need to give it very much guidance. You just give it an example of how you would call that command. And you can see here, this is how you would upload a video using a metadata.md file. And then you can see here, I've also given it some additional guidance. So what I want this agent to do is I want it to save transcripts in a particular folder. And when it does any research, I want it to save it in the research folder. This is quite nice because I built this agent for my own purposes for research or writing transcripts. And so you can just basically define how you want the agent to organize your files. And then the workflows section is just defining the steps I want the agent to take every single time. So when I say write a script, what it's going to do is going to read this scripting guide. This is like an SOP or a standard operating procedure that tells the agent, here's how you write a really great YouTube script. Then it's going to create a folder with a project name, and then it's going to write a script.md file. This is just an example. You could imagine you can customize this in a million different ways. This is just a Python script I wrote that is able to use the existing YouTube API and go and fetch data from it. You could imagine this doing pretty much anything. So this script can do absolutely anything you want. All you're doing is allowing the agent to call the script for you. This is a single script with multiple entry points. So you can use this in 4 different ways. You can get the videos for a particular channel. You pass in the channel ID, and then you pass in the number of days you want to search for. You can also search for videos on any topic. You can search for videos on AI agents or whatever thing you're interested in. You can research any topic. You can download a video transcript. You might do this to understand how transcripts are written. Maybe you want to improve your own script writing, or maybe you just want to analyze and study a video and summarize the key points. You can use the agent to do that for you. And then we can also upload videos directly to YouTube. So the reason you might want to do that is to standardize your process. Say if you're uploading a lot of content to YouTube, maybe you don't want to write the metadata and the timestamps, and you want a consistent, reliable way to upload videos. The great thing about automation and scripting in general is you're taking a thing that you do all of the time and you're making it very reliable and deterministic. It means if you upload a video, you do it the correct way every single time. You're encoding all of your best practices into a script. Software engineers have been doing this for the last 20 years. And then we're also defining the credentials that you need available. This is quite useful because the agent is able to look at the script and is able to figure out that if something goes wrong, it can pretty much quickly see that you need to set a YouTube API key. So it can give you some guidance if you haven't set things up correctly. And then when we take a look at the code, this code is relatively simple. The purpose of the video is not to show the script necessarily. The purpose of the video is just to show you that you can just quickly write these kind of simple scripts, and then you can just combine them with an agents.md file and build an agent really, really quickly. So this is just wrapping the YouTube Data API v3 that we enabled earlier. You can see here that we have a function to resolve a channel. We can fetch channel videos. We pass in a channel ID, and then we pass in basically a time window. We have an operation to search for videos. We have an operation to download a transcript, and it's using a library called the YouTube Transcript API. This is just an open source library that enables you to fetch YouTube transcripts. And down at the bottom, we have another functionality which allows us to upload videos to YouTube. This is a little bit more complicated because we need to enable OAuth in order to upload our videos, but it's basically the same idea. It's a simple script that we are writing, and then we're just giving this script to an agent. So as you can see, this is a really simple and powerful way to think about and build AI agents. We're taking an existing agent harness, which is becoming a commodity. So Open Code, Claude Code, any of the open source coding agents, you can take that as the basis for your agent, but then you can combine it with a set of deterministic scripts or tools. And then you combine that with a system instruction, which is just an agents.md file, and any other context you want to give your agent. And you can very quickly build really powerful and really useful AI agents. You can have a conversational interface. You don't have to deal with infrastructure. You don't have to deal with complexity. You don't have to deal with no-code platforms. This is a really lovely way to build AI agents for your own business. I don't recommend this as a pattern to build production-ready AI agents by any stretch of the imagination. This is clearly a way of building AI agents for your own use case and your own productivity. It's not a great way to build AI agents for multi-users situations, or if you need to deal with more complex security, things like that. But if you are building agents for your own use case, this is a really simple and brilliant way to do it. Remember that you can get hold of all of the code on GitHub. I'll put a link in the description below. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and I'll see you next week.